Let's stop pretending the gun world changed in 2025, because it didn't. Everyone's acting like the latest releases took over the streets, the classes, the ranges, but they didn't. And if you think they did, that's exactly why you're here. Because you've probably overlooked half the pistols on this list. Maybe you wrote them off, maybe you never bothered to shoot them, maybe you just believed whatever shiny name the algorithm pushed that week. But the guns that still dominate in 2025, they're not chasing trends, they're built for work. A while back, I watched a guy flex his brand new revolutionary 9mm at a dusty outdoor range. 2 mags in, the thing started choking like it forgot how to breathe. Meanwhile, an older pistol, one you're about to see, kept drilling the same hole like it was bored. That's when it hit me. New guns dominate conversations, but the real dominators survive everything. So let's talk about the pistols that refuse to back down. The ones that didn't get quieter in 2025, they got louder. I'm your boy Steve, so let's start from the bottom. There's a certain attitude the TP9 Elite SC throws at you the moment you rack it. Quiet, not shy, like something small that absolutely knows it hits harder than you expect. I felt that the first time I ran it. The pistol comes onto the range already halfway into a sprint, and you're not matching its pace, and if you're not matching its pace, that's on you, not the gun. This thing moves fast, faster than its size suggests, faster than a lot of shooters are ready for, and definitely faster than the guns sitting beside it pretending to be serious contenders. The truth is, the Elite SC doesn't try to act bigger, it just performs bigger. The slide snaps forward with this tuned, impatient aggression that feels like it was built by someone who hates hesitation. I've had it settle before my eyes even finish their blink, and that's where the trouble starts, because speed like this exposes everything. Weak grip? You feel it instantly. Late trigger press? It'll call you out. This pistol doesn't politely mask your flaws, it drags them right into the open. And that's why it still holds a place in 2025. Small frame, big momentum, zero apologies. Ignore it if you want, it sure as hell won't ignore you. This gun still dominates 2025 because it fixes problems shooters love blaming on anything except for themselves. I've watched people chase recoil control, drifting sights, shaking confidence, you name it, for years. The Shadow 2 doesn't argue with you about any of that. The moment you settle into the grip, it just erases the nonsense. No attitude, no flash, nothing trying to prove something. It steadies your entire shooting experience in a way that almost feels unfair to every pistol sitting beside it. And the shift hits earlier than you expect. One magazine in, you notice the gun isn't reacting to you, you're the one adjusting to it. I felt that the first time I shot it, and so will you. The weight absorbs mistakes you didn't even realize you were making, and the sights return with this eerie built-in intention like someone's guiding them back for you. The more you rely on that stability, the more honest the Shadow 2 becomes. It doesn't fight your habits, it exposes them without a single ounce of drama. And that's why it stays relevant in 2025. Not because it's loud or even aggressive, but because it turns you and me into shooters we always suspected we could be. The next pistol? Let's just say the mess doesn't slow it down, it finds its own way through it. Top 3 starts here, and this is where people swear I've lost my mind. Folks don't crowd around this one at the counter, but I've always noticed who's still shooting clean groups after everyone else starts fiddling with their gear. The APX A1 never tries to impress you at first glance. Hell, most shooters walk right past it, and maybe that's exactly why it works so damn well. It doesn't ask for attention, it just shows up, stays steady, and keeps cycling no matter how sloppy the day gets. Run it in the cold, it behaves. Run it filthy, and it still behaves. I've forgotten to clean mine for way too long, and it still acted like nothing happened. Somewhere in the middle of all that quiet consistency, you realize why it still holds ground in 2025. Flash fades, trends rotate, shooters swap gear every 6 months, but this thing just keeps punching the clock without a single complaint. Nothing about it is dramatic. It's just a tool doing its job while you and I are busy dealing with everything else. And it's funny how you don't think much about it until it's the only pistol that didn't quit on you. The next gun stays relevant for completely different reasons. Stay tuned now. People talk a lot of shit about micro compacts until you actually pay attention to how they behave under recoil, under pressure, and under a shooter who isn't babysitting every tiny movement. I used to shrug them off too, and most of you probably did the same until you see what the Max 9 does. Everyone writes it off because it looks small until the slide snaps forward like it's racing you to the next shot. That moment changes how you think about this gun, and that's exactly why it's still alive in 2025. You can argue capacity, size, or whatever else you want, the gun doesn't care. I pushed it through sloppy strings and it still felt like it was the only one correcting me. It doesn't fight your mistakes, it exposes them. It's nerdy, sure, but it's still real. People who hate this pistol all share the same problem, and it's not the gun. You don't carry this thing because it's cute, you carry it because it solves problems faster than you can complain about them. The next one earns your trust for completely different reasons. If you want to understand this pistol, stop thinking like a civilian and start thinking like someone who's been corrected by an instructor who doesn't raise his voice because he doesn't need to. The PDP Compact has that same energy. It doesn't suggest anything. It issues orders, and the moment recoil hits, you feel exactly why. The slide tracks with a discipline most shooters don't have yet, and the geometry forces your wrist into the right angle whether you intended it or not. You're not controlling it, you're following its lead. Push the pace and the gun decides the cadence. Break your grip and it punishes you with instant feedback. Start rushing your shots and the sights snap back with a rhythm that tells you to slow your shit down and do it right. Somewhere in that command structure, you realize why this platform is still relevant in 2025, because it behaves like a proper duty weapon, demanding form, demanding focus, and giving you nothing for free. The ergonomics don't comfort you, they correct you. The trigger doesn't flatter you, it tests you. Alright, enough warm-ups. This next pistol certainly hits different. The 509 Tactical doesn't give you time to settle in. The moment I racked it, the slide felt like it wasn't waiting on either of us, it was establishing control. There's a dense metallic certainty in the way that it moves, the kind that tells you that this pistol wasn't built for comfort or cooperation. I've dragged it through mud, bounced it off barricades, shot it half soaked, and it never acted like it needed a break. It acted like it expected you to keep up. Run it fast, and the gun decides how this is going to go. I tried pushing the pace and it was obvious real quick. I wasn't leading it, I was responding. And if you don't tighten your grip or clean up your stance, the 509 will let you know immediately. That's part of why it still matters in 2025. The shooter fades first, the pistol just keeps getting sharper, harder, more locked in with every cycle. Recoil isn't gentle. It snaps back with a steel-edged demand that dares you to loosen tension for half a second. Some guns want teamwork, this one expects discipline, and it enforces it. The next pistol dominates in a completely different direction. Me and a buddy of mine were out at a Texas range a few mornings ago, early winter cold that makes the steel feel like it's trying to freeze your fingertips off. Breath in the air, stiff hands, dirt half frozen under your boots. Not the day you expect a compact pistol to behave. I handed in my M&P 9 2.0 Compact thinking the cold might slow the gun down, but the first shot shut that idea down. The slide snapped forward like the weather wasn't even part of the conversation. If you'd been standing there, you would have heard it too. That clean, grounded report these guns have when they're in their element. And somewhere around the third mag, it clicked for me. Most pistols in 2025 start getting moody when conditions turn ugly, but this one didn't care. Bad grip, stiff fingers, uneven stance, it just ran regardless. No hesitation, no attitude shift, no weird cycling. I watched him start pushing pace, and the M&P settled into the steady, no-nonsense rhythm like it was built for mornings exactly like this. You could almost feel it pulling itself together faster than either of us could. Cold mornings usually expose weaknesses. This one, on the other hand, didn't give us a single one. Whatever comes next, it handles weather with a whole different attitude. I had one of those strange days where everything goes to hell before you even uncase the pistol. Bad lighting, someone over 2 lanes slapping a rental gun until it jammed itself shut, brass bouncing off the divider into my t-shirt, just a full disaster. My buddy showed up annoyed, I showed up tired, and half the shooters around us looked like they were debating going home early. So I pulled out the USP, mostly because I knew it wouldn't add to the chaos. First shot, it gave me exactly what I expected. Not excitement, not drama, just a solid planted thump that cut through the noise. And if you've ever had a day like that, you know how rare it is when a gun doesn't amplify the headache. I've run it on sessions where nothing cooperates and it acts like it doesn't even register the mess. Shoot it in that kind of environment and you'll feel it happen. You stop trying to force rhythm and the gun quietly hands you one that actually works. Everyone else kept fighting their guns, their groups, and their patience. The USP, on the other hand, stayed steady like the chaos was somebody else's problem. If you disagree with this next one, you simply haven't shot it. Most 9mm that still dominate 2025 do it loudly. Flashy slides, loud reputations, the kind of marketing that sounds like a rock concert intro. The P10C isn't that gun. You pick it up expecting mid-tier energy, something you'll rotate out in a month. The grip feels too simple, the frame too honest, the whole thing too normal to impress anyone scrolling Instagram. But then you start carrying it, drawing it, dry pressing it, living with it. And that's where the quiet dominance creeps in. The gun doesn't jump, doesn't twitch, doesn't overreact when your grip isn't perfect. It just settles every single time like it's built to smooth out the stuff you don't want to admit you're still sloppy with. Nothing flashy, just a pistol that refuses to misbehave even when you do. And that's why it still shows up in 2025. People pretend they've moved past pistols like this, but somehow the P10C keeps sticking around. It wins by being the one pistol nobody brags about, yet somehow everyone ends up trusting. People talk like they're too good for it, but are you? Drop it in the comments. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. If this one stays calm, the next one does the exact opposite. You'll understand the attitude immediately. There's a certain tension that shows up when an actual expert is standing close enough to notice everything. Your grip pressure, your hesitation, even the small shifts you don't realize you're making. He wasn't correcting anything, just present. And with a gun this size, that presence feels heavier than it should. The X macro looks compact enough that anyone would assume it's about to get tossed around the moment real scrutiny hits. But what happens next isn't dramatic, it's almost anticlimactic. The shot impulse comes out calmer than the gun's footprint suggests. The frame doesn't bobble, the follow-up stays flatter than your expectations deserve. Even he pauses, not impressed, not surprised, more like he's adjusting an opinion he formed too early. There's no big revelation, no heroic moment, just a compact pistol behaving like the category rules were meant for someone else. And somewhere in that odd little triangle, your assumptions, his quiet judgment, and the gun refusing to match either, you see why it still manages to dominate conversations in 2025 without raising its voice. It doesn't act small, it doesn't act big, it just acts sure of itself. The trouble with the GX4 is that it doesn't wait for your approval. The moment it settles into your hand, the balance of control shifts, quietly, confidently, without asking. You come in thinking you're judging it, maybe stacking it against the gun you actually brag about. Instead, The GX4 grabs a little more influence than it should and uses it like it's been in charge the whole time. There's a firmness in the frame that isn't aggressive, just decisive. You try to guide it, set the pace, shape the moment, but the gun answers with a rhythm that pulls you along before you finish the thought. And the uncomfortable part? It works. It works better than you want it to. That's why it still dominates 2025. People talk down on Taurus while secretly relying on this one because it steers them cleaner than the pistols they trust more. You feel a little jealous thinking about shooters who dismiss it. They don't even know what kind of control they're missing out on. The next pistol? Its confidence isn't quiet, it lets you feel it right away. The Glock 19 Gen 5 is the pistol you keep trying to outgrow. You buy something sleeker, something with more personality, something you swear feels better in the hand, and for a while, you convince yourself it's true. But the first time you actually need consistency, the first time your grip slips or your timing falls apart, you know exactly which gun you're going back to. It's annoying, almost insulting how the 19 behaves when you return to it. There's no warm-up, no adjustment period. Your hands settle, the rhythm snaps into place, and suddenly all those better options don't look so impressive now. You can argue online about ergonomics or triggers or whatever new brand is trending, but your performance doesn't lie. And that's why the 19 still rules 2025, not because it's exciting, but because it exposes the gap between what you want to be true and what actually is. You don't have to love it, you just end up relying on it anyway. And if that bothers you, wait until the next shift hits. This list only gets rougher. I didn't expect much the first time I handled a PX9 Compact, and maybe that's why it stood out. Not because it tried to surprise me, but because nothing about it demanded a reaction. You hold it for a moment, and instead of making a statement, the pistol feels almost settled. Not passive, just composed, like it already understands what it's built to do. As you run your hands across the controls, nothing interrupts the flow. No awkward edges, no budget gun tells, just a frame that moves with you without needing attention. That ease is exactly why it's still relevant in 2025. The PX9 never chases status or even trends. It doesn't have to anyway. There's a steadiness baked into the design that more expensive guns try to manufacture, while this one delivers it without announcement. It doesn't compete loudly, and it doesn't need to. It just keeps showing up because being quietly capable has carried it farther than hype ever could. This was the smooth one. The next one shifts like someone slams the table. The Hellcat dominates because it carries more tension, more output, and more readiness per inch than almost anything in its class. There's no warm-up to it. The moment you grip it, the entire pistol feels condensed, like every component is packed under pressure and still behaving exactly the way it should. The slide movement is tight, the return is immediate, and the frame holds everything together with a firmness that feels engineered rather than aggressive. Nothing leaks, nothing drifts, nothing feels overstressed. It's dense performance, not loud performance, power squeezed down into a shape that somehow refuses to lose control. And in a year where micro compacts keep multiplying, this one hasn't faded because it never relied on flash. It relied on compression, discipline, and output that shouldn't fit inside a frame this size, but does. This is compressed power. Now just imagine the one that outranks it. Some pistols are in their spot. The Staccato P feels like it was born there. It doesn't rush to prove anything, doesn't lean on quirks or even clever engineering. It carries a kind of composure that settles the moment you take hold of it, like a tool that already understands the assignment and knows you'll catch up when you're ready. There's nothing flashy driving it. No trick, no gimmick, no single trait that explains why it runs the way it does. The whole platform moves with a unity that refuses to be broken apart or analyzed into pieces. You sense it in the rhythm, in the certainty behind each motion, and how the gun gives you exactly what you intended without ever feeling like it's compensating for you. It stands out the top because nothing else feels this complete, not demanding the position, just existing in it. And that's exactly why it stands alone at number 1. Before we wrap this up, let me say something shooters don't like hearing. These pistols didn't stay on top of 2025 because they were shiny or new. They stayed there because nothing could knock them off. I've seen hype guns rise and fall, but these kept proving themselves every time I pull their trigger. If there's a 9mm you still think dominates this year more than anything else on this list, do tell me. And if one of these finally lets you down, I want that story too. That's how shooters learn. Longevity tells the truth. Once again, I'm Steve, and I'll see you next time.